sports are really important vehicles for relationships.
We have purpose. We have a why. We bring people together. We connect.
I feel like God is our greatest supporter and our greatest coach.
Welcome back to Rabbi on the Sidelines. This is Rabbi Sherman from Sinai Temple. Just to make a note of this special program this morning, we're in February 2024, and this is our first Rabbi on the Sidelines back since October 7th. We took a hiatus over the summer, and we combined the intersection of sports and faith. And over the next few weeks and months, we're going to not only combine the intersection of sports and faith, but really connect that with the land and the people of Israel. And so this week, there's no better way to begin welcoming back Rabbi on the Sidelines than welcoming our guest, Yoav Bruck, who has many different titles. On the sports front, Israeli Olympic swimmer in 3 different Olympics. We'll go through each one, and you'll tell us the times. And on the Israel front and in the Jewish front, owner of Kenes Tours, which Sinai Temple is proud to be a partner of. We've gone through 2 different missions, and in May, for Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day and Israel Memorial Day, Sinai Temple will be taking a mission. If you have not signed up yet or expressed interest, please email us and contact us at Sinai Temple, and Yoav is going to tell us exactly what to expect. Yoav, it's great to see you.
See you as well.
So, thank you. Is that on, actually? One second. Push the button right there. Okay, try that.
Okay, we're on.
Beautiful. So the last time I saw you was in Tel Aviv at one of the best restaurants that you've taken me to, Goshen in Tel Aviv.
All right.
Take us back to Tel Aviv in August, where we got to experience the pre-October 7th Israel and what has happened over the last 3 months in terms of travel to Israel and what you would like to see us in the diaspora do over the next months and years.
Yeah, so last we met was August. Israel was booming. I remember it was hard to get a table in a restaurant.
Yes.
And then October 7th happened, and, I flew through the airport 2 days ago, and it seemed like Erev Yom Kippur. Very sad to see, but it's picking up. More airlines are flying back. We've actually been busy because we work a lot with the Jewish world. And the amount of support and solidarity that we've seen is just tremendous. We've had a lot of solidarity missions coming over. And I think one thing I have to say about it is like pretty much every single person I've spoken to right before they went back to the US, they said it was the most significant trip they've ever taken to Israel, almost like a life-changing one because of the situation.
Actually, most people say, they're happy to go home, but love visiting Israel. And since October 7th, so many people, my wife, Rabbi Guzik included, she went in late November. She said the sadness of leaving Israel was really profound as well. Have you seen that over the last few months as well?
Not only I've seen it, I feel it myself. I was actually in New York October 7th, and it took me a couple of weeks to go back because I had some things planned in Europe. Plus, I was like, trying to see what's happening. And I remember the feeling of coming back home. As an Israeli, when we were landing, I was like, it felt strange. So even for myself as an Israeli, I remember how it felt different to come back home. And this is exactly what I'm hearing from Americans, where it kind of flipped. You go back to Israel now, you feel like you are going home. And then when you come here, it's a second home where it used to be your first home. And it's very consistent. Every Jewish person I'm speaking to is referring to the fact that our whole world is upside down, and the meaning and the importance of Israel has taken such a huge difference to where it's center stage right now. And for some, it was just something in the back. For many, it was a big thing, but still not the major one. And everybody's telling me now that they feel like probably stronger than ever that Israel needs to be strong, because otherwise the Jewish people are in trouble.
So you talked about America also feeling at home, and one place that you lived for a couple of years that I've never been to is Auburn, Alabama. You got to Auburn, Alabama, I believe, through your swim coach, who I believe you met in Colorado. But take us back to Israel, where there aren't many Israeli Olympic athletes, no less Israeli Olympic swimmers. What was your entry into that sport? Not necessarily basketball with any Abdiha or Tal Brody or soccer, swimming. What was the entry into that? Was it the Mediterranean? It definitely wasn't the Dead Sea. It's probably the Mediterranean.
Well, it was actually in the pool. I grew up in a moshav in the south, very famous for the grapes, moshav Lachish. When you go to the supermarket in Israel, you're likely to buy the grapes from our moshav. They're California grapes.
Oh, even better.
And when I was a kid, there was a new lifeguard who came in, and he started gymnastics, athletics, and swimming in a small village with 60 families. Long story, within a couple of years, we had a national champion in running and gymnastics and me in swimming. And then I've taken swimming as a very serious hobby. And when I was 17, I broke the first national record. And I realized if I want to be the best I can be, I need to go to the US. So I was an exchange student in Las Vegas for 1 year, where David coached me.
Right.
And then he went back to Auburn, his alma mater, as a head coach. And I was his first recruit ever because he wouldn't let other coaches recruit me. He lied to them and he said, I need to go back to the Army.
Wow. So you go from Las Vegas to Auburn, Alabama. It's an interesting connection with Israel that now Coach Bruce Pearl has brought his basketball team to Israel.
Correct.
So what was it like as an Israeli Jew in the deep south of Auburn, Alabama? Was your identity ever threatened, ever challenged, or was it proud to wear that Magen David and that flag of Israel?
So I never even taken a recruiting trip. He saved that because he knew I'm coming with him. But I remember clearly coming first time ever to the South, let alone to Auburn, and realizing that I'm probably one of the only Jewish students. And if there were students, it wasn't a big part of who they were, because if they wanted to be a Jewish student, they probably would have gone to other SEC schools that were more Jewish. And I came there because of swimming. I didn't even know about anything else. Very proud to know that nowadays there's a Hillel at Auburn.
Yeah.
There's a lot more Jewish students. Coach Pearl has done a tremendous job of increasing awareness. But back at the time, I did not feel anything different, strangely enough. And if anyone looked at me in a different way, it was because I was a foreigner, but not a Jew. And in their mind, I don't even think back at the time they met many Jews. So it was just like, oh, he's from a different country, but not necessarily a Jew. So I never felt any discrimination or anti-Semitism. Years back, after I've graduated, a friend told me that somebody's made a comment, but they made sure I wouldn't hear it.
Interesting.
So this is my only kind of recollection of anything like that.
And there was a podcast that you did recently, a couple of months ago, right after October 7th, I believe, it was with an Australian teammate of yours at Auburn.
Correct.
Who basically you introduced him to Judaism and Israel. Were there moments like that you recognized that you did represent this country of Israel and the Jewish people?
Oh, in my mind, I've always represented Israel for sure and the Jewish people. It's just that there was not big awareness about Judaism at Auburn. I remember one point the Israeli General Council came when it was the Gulf War. And this was the only time that I really felt like, oh, here's another person representing Israel other than me on this campus. But I've always felt like I'm representing. My first Olympics ever, 92, was on my at the end of my sophomore year. So everybody spoke about an Israeli representing Auburn in the Olympics, and it's always been out there, and they're actually very proud of having me as a foreigner.
And so you break a record when you're 17 years old, you come to America, you go to Vegas, you go to Auburn. Now as a sophomore, you're in the Olympics. Take us through that process, realizing that I can represent Israel on the international stage. When did you say that when you were younger, you realized that I had this power to break a record? When was the recognition that you could actually be an Olympic athlete as well?
It's funny we're sitting here in LA because 84 Olympics in LA, I remember it like it was yesterday. Rowdy Gaines winning the 100 freestyle here in LA. And then I'm going to Auburn, and Rowdy at the time was the most famous Auburn alumni. I then fast forward 98, make my first ever World Championships final in Rome. And we're walking all to the bus, and Rowdy is running towards me and jumping on top of me, and all my competitors see that. And I was like, yes, this is like the best thing I can have happen before the finals. They'll look at me like, oh, how does he know him so well? So this is the connection to Auburn. But I think I knew from a very young age, and this is why I came to America. I remember reading Swimming World magazine. Back at the time, there was no internet, so I signed up to read that magazine just to kind of be connected to the world, understanding that if you want to be the best you can be, you need to go to the best place. So here I am in America, and then I'm in college, and then Auburn becomes really good, and I'm being exposed to the best swimmers in the world, and I start to believe that I can be the best I can be because I'm beating the best swimmers in the world day in and day out. So Auburn has been a big part of that. And 92 was my first. I was still young. I didn't have much expectations.
That was Barcelona.
That was Barcelona.
Dream team right there too.
And when we checked into the village, it was together with the dream team. I have pictures with
Barkley, was there a connection with Barkley with the Auburn?
Of course. I was like, War Eagle. He turns around, he comes over, he starts talking to me once again as a little kid, 20-year-old, and I see Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and all those guys just standing there within right next to me. It was very exciting.
And so to see the Israeli flag in the Olympics in 1992, which was Gulf War time, did you also, I keep using the word recognize, but did you recognize the importance of what that meant now on the global stage of what Israel could mean? Specifically, by the way, that was before Bob Costas finally, just a couple of years ago, recognized the Munich massacre as well. Was there a connection with Israel throughout your Olympic career about what happened to those athletes and then what you represented on the Olympic stage?
It's funny. I get goosebumps when I talk about it every single time for the past, I don't know how many years. So I was born 1972. There was another Israeli athlete by the name of Amit Inbal. He was a world champion surfer and was supposed to win a medal in 92. He made the finals, but he didn't win a medal. So we were the kids of 72 who grew up to represent Israel. When I came back from America to Israel, somebody tried to match-made me with one of the daughters of one of the... this is how deeply this is ingrained within me. So I grew up as an Israeli athlete, knowing of what happened in 72, knowing that representing Israel in the global arena, but specifically in the Olympics, has a lot more than just trying to make a final or medal. And I'm convinced, and we'll talk about later the coming LA games, I'm convinced that being an Israeli athlete is a very different experience than just being generally an Olympic athlete. I'm meeting tomorrow Lenny Kreiselberg, who's one of the greatest.
Our first guest on Rabbi on the Sidelines. Tell him
really?
Hello. Yes.
He's a great friend, and I'm honored to be a friend of his. And his Jewish story
through Russia,
growing up in the Ukraine with anti-Semitism and all that has a huge Jewish component to it. But if you add to that the Israeli part and our history, when we go to Olympic Games, we feel differently, I believe, than just a normal Olympic athlete who's just about representing his country and doing the best he can. For us, there's a heavy weight of representing a lot more than that.
And so what did it mean when you came to America in the Atlanta Olympics, representing North American Jewry as well? Was it a different type of support from the Jewish community that you saw when you were in Barcelona?
Well, first thing, Atlanta was my backyard. It was an hour drive from Auburn. So I remember coming as Israelis. We had our pre-camp in Chicago, and then somebody missed booking or something. So we walk in, and instead of 50 meters, it's 25 yards. So I was always like, don't worry, guys. I call Auburn. I'm like, guys, we're coming. I'm like, sure, it's home for you. So we drive to Auburn, an hour and 15 minutes from the Atlanta Olympic pool. And for me, it's my backyard. And I'm like, oh my God, this is my second Olympics. It's in Atlanta next to Auburn. I feel like this is home, yet I'm representing Israel already. This was Israel's first ever team final. So we made the 4x1 medley final. And again, it was very, very special to be there with, my background as an Auburn swimmer and a lot of friends in the stands, but also a lot of Jewish people, which until today, people meet me and they're like, I'm Jewish, I'm from here and there. And I remember watching you guys from the stand in Atlanta.
That's amazing.
And it's heartwarming, yeah.
And so then take us from the Olympics, where you are an outsider but representing Israel on that stage, the Maccabiah Games, where all of the Jews around the world then come to Israel. But I hear of that experience and I haven't been yet. Hopefully on a Kines tour, we'll do a Maccabiah tour as well. When all of those Jews from around the world then go to Israel, and you were in charge of, I believe, the 1993.
I was the head of sport.
Head of sport for the Maccabiah Games. What is that like, watching the diaspora all come home to the land of Israel through sports?
So, the older I get, the better I understand the importance of the Maccabiah. Because as a kid growing up in Israel, wanting to be an Olympic athlete and being world ranked pretty high, I looked at the Maccabiah as just like another meet, and okay, big deal. So I mean, I was probably one of the first Israelis to win it, because up until then, the Americans have always won it, and it was okay for me, but not that big. But over the years, especially with my chairman being the chairman of the Maccabiah, and me being head of sport, I understand the power of bringing the third largest sporting event in the world to Israel. 10,000 athletes and families, and you meet people who tell you 1960 whatever, I was in Israel for the Maccabiah. You ask them what sport, what place, and they look at you like, come on, it doesn't matter. I was there. I remember it like it was yesterday. I met people. It was the first time I really connected to Israel and had a stronger connection to the Jewish people as a whole, because I've met people from so many. I think last Maccabiah we had 80 some countries represented, including Cuba and some small Caribbean islands. So I today understand how important it is. And the upcoming one, I think, will be probably, the Jewish people have so many, we have such a history, but this will be a very significant one. And we already see the numbers of people interested to come. And we're preparing for huge games and a very significant one.
And when is that?
It's normally a year after the Olympics. So
next summer.
Next summer.
So let's go now to Paris for this upcoming Olympics. What is the foreshadowing of what Israel will look like in that Olympics? And now post October 7th, how do you imagine that significance of what it means for Israel to be on Olympic stage when the BDS movement has expanded, that it even includes sports that, this country won't do taekwondo or judo with Israel? Do you imagine any, God forbid, boycott? And if so, what does that look like for Israel's participation in that?
So my other business is sports travel, and we are the official agent of the Olympics.
Oh, wow.
So
you need a rabbi on that trip, right?
Absolutely. Come.
Right here.
We'll recruit you. So
I'm not going on a recruiting trip like the coach. Just bring
you come. So I'm in Paris often, and I think first thing first, there's big concern about security, and rightfully so. Number two, I think sport has always tried to stay away from politics, and for us as Jews, and more specifically as Israelis, we need to be very careful with boycotts. So with what happens now, there's a lot of voices of, we should boycott this and we should boycott that and we shouldn't go to Qatar. There's the World Swimming Championships taking place in Qatar as we speak.
Any Israelis there?
And there's Israeli swimmers there. And there's Israeli water polo players that couldn't go. And there's Israeli synchronized swimmers that have just performed in open water. A guy who just got 10th. He was 4th in the Olympics and now he's 10th and he qualified. So it is very sensitive. We have our IOC member, Yael Arad, who's Israel's first ever medal winner in the Olympics there. And there's been a lot of behind the scene work to get our athletes to come there. A lot of them have feared for their own safety. So, it is complicated. I would expect, unfortunately, Arab athletes to boycott Israelis, refuse to go fight in judo like we've seen many times in the past, refuse to shake hands. And I think sport should stay playing. And I can stress enough how important it is. Yet again, you just mentioned my podcast with Brett. Our instinct always tells us, well, this Algerian athlete was blessing the October 7th attack. How can you represent his country in the Olympics? You should be boycotted. Then you take a deep breath and you understand that we shouldn't be the first jump to boycott people. Maybe we should try to use a different approach to educate people, to build bridges, to maybe understand where they come from and give them a letter to climb down from the tree they've climbed on. I'm an Arab athlete. The best thing to get support is to bash Jews and Israelis, like always. So I'm a big believer now more than ever, especially after what happened with the Arab swimmers here in America, that it's not easy, but we should find ways to try and build bridges, because the easiest thing is just burn.
Is there any moment within the Olympics that you met somebody from either a Muslim country or a different country that you now stay in contact with today that didn't know so much about Israel, but maybe after October 7th has reached out to you and seen your humanity and not just, what they see on the news?
Swimming has been an amazing sport for me because of my exposure to people from all over the world. This is how I started my business. I'm going to start a sport travel business because I know basically a person in every country in the world. Unfortunately, sitting here and having to answer your question, I will say that the amount of support I got from friends from all over the world is tremendous. Yet I cannot think of any Muslim athlete who reached out and said the right things to say. I have an example which I rather not elaborate on here, but of a Muslim swimmer who was in America the years I was here, very educated, who expressed opinions 30 years ago that I was very disappointed to hear. And I think education is a big part. And I think one of our biggest challenges as Jews and as Israelis is the amount of hatred and bad education that is being taught in our countries. And if we can change that, I think this will be a big step for a better future for all of us.
I was speaking about education and what Kenneth's Doors is educate. My own children, 12, 10, and 8, went on the family mission in August, and they have a completely, not different, but amazing experience in Israel than what they simply get in this also amazing education right here at Sinai Kibbutz Academy. What do you do as head of Kenneth's Tours that you imagine young people, also Jews, because I think that's as important in education, that we see some of our own Jews within the United States of America critiquing not just government, and that's fair. We can all critique our own governments, whether the United States, Israel, whatever country you live in, but how to get them to see a positive Zionism, a positive Israel. Any examples that you've seen in Kenneth that you want to share with us that you can see the effects?
Sure. So, we have our job cut out for us because Israel is so amazing. And basically, if you really want to cut to the chase, you just need to get people to Israel.
Say that again. That's important to know.
You just need to get people to Israel. The minute you come, all of a sudden, you hear it from people, okay, now I can explain. I couldn't explain it in words until I came here. But once you come, you feel it. Something that is hard to discover in words, but once you're there, you understand. So for us, the job is just basically to do a good delivery, which we try very hard and work very hard to do. But we also try to find new ways of showing Israel to different people. So we have hundreds of speakers because we understand different people are interested in different things. One of the best examples I have is digging with archaeologists. And I have a friend who came over to Israel with young kids, and I joined them. And it was my first time doing the same thing. Funny enough, 7 minutes drive from where I grew up.
Oh, wow.
So as a kid, I used to go dig with archaeologists in Tel Achish, where I grew up. There's British archaeologists digging there. But there's caves in Tel Marisha, which is literally around the corner, that nowadays you can come with your family and help archaeologists dig. And you see those little British kids digging and looking at their mom and dad, and you could look in their eyes that they're like, oh my God, I'm touching it with my own hands. And those stones are from like 2,000 years ago. And the stories we learn in school in London are feeling real here in Israel. So this is, I think, a very good example for
we
what
actually
we do.
did the Temple Mount sifting project with Kenneth and my own kids. They found a tooth and a stone, and it was unbelievable to see them. Obviously, we left that there because for the archaeologists, but to have them take the dust of the earth is a beautiful thing.
Especially for kids.
100%.
When you feel it in your own.
In terms of sport, you see are there programs, number one, that actually can bridge a different faith and ethnicity in Israel that you see? You get Arab and Christian Jews in a swimming pool and they can learn the humanity. Are there things like that that exist? I know they do exist with basketball and Seeds of Peace and stuff like that. Is swimming an option that you believe that can be a bridge as well?
Like our reality, so is those programs. It's like ups and downs. So I remember back at the time when Shimon Peres was active, the Paris Center for Peace.
I was just talking about it this morning. I love that. It's an amazing place.
They were doing a lot of programs. I know it because they're traveling through us. Jews and Arabs go together to play tournaments abroad. So then I have a very good friend, Simon, who was a parliament member, and he was in the Lapid government before. And he's approached Arab parliament members, and he said to them, you have so many problems in your communities, crime and violence and this and that. Let's solve it through sport. And I remember the look they had on their face first, but I also remember when they started seeing results, when the Israeli government started to give them funds to build facilities and have their kids go swim and play basketball and play soccer. You look at our national football team, which is Israel's biggest sport. It's quite a
Be
bit of
careful to
Arabs.
say the word football on Super Bowl week, soccer, but yes.
I am going to the Super Bowl.
You're going to the Super Bowl. They need a rabbi there too, right?
Come.
Let's do it.
But yeah, soccer. We have a very good number of Israeli Arabs playing on our national team, which I think, except the controversies here in a while that people from the fringes are trying to push, I think is a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think when Israeli kids and Arab kids find themselves competing with each other, training with each other, they realize that people are people.
Mm-hmm.
You win, you lose. We all play by the same rules.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're better, then you win. It doesn't matter what's your background. So I think, again, sport is a huge bridge. We'll have a very challenging time right now trying to do it again in Israel because of the situation, because of how we probably went back 10, 20, 30 years in terms of locals on both sides willing to do the effort and put trust in people that do that and even get legitimacy to do that. Because you find a lot of people that were even left-wing saying, oh, I don't trust them anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's a challenge, but at the end of the day, we need to take a deep breath and understand that if we give up hope, then what are we fighting for?
So at the Super Bowl, when they say, whoever wins, we're going to Disneyland, I hope that Travis and Taylor say we're going to Israel. So I do hope that you're successful in that. But what does travel sport actually mean? Who are you bringing and what are they seeing?
So originally, when I started my business, my chairman has seen that niche of sport and travel uncovered in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we started the business. Nowadays, we're doing every single global sporting event, from the Olympics to the Euro to the World Cup that will be here in America, Canada, and Mexico,
Yes.
but specifically in LA. The next Olympics here. We even did the Rugby World Cup in France, in October. It's not that it's a big sport in Israel, but we've been in this business for so long that pretty much everyone in this industry around the world knows us, and we have access.
So these are Israelis going to those sporting events, or
Primarily, but we've turned into a global operation company, so we have clients from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
We represent anything from marathons. So if you want to run a marathon in New
March
York,
17th in LA.
Well, LA is a bit far for Israelis, but we do New York.
But I ran the Jerusalem Marathon. If we went and actually went with Shalva, it was an amazing experience in 2018.
Shalva is the closest nonprofit to my heart in Israel.
So
I love them.
shout out to Rabbi Kalman Samuels and
He's a very dear friend.
Yossi, just an amazing people and a very close relationship.
Speaking of sport, so Kalman was a golf player when he was a kid in Vancouver, and he hadn't played golf in years. And I took him to Caesarea. We played together, and to see the look on his face, like a little teenager playing a game, was so gratifying.
An amazing man.
Absolutely.
So what are the goals of ISTA post October 7th in terms of unifying Israel in the sports world?
The Paris Olympics is going to be probably the best example of where fans, Jewish communities play a role in supporting Israeli sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give an example. There's an Israeli judoka, Yarden, who won a bronze in Rio de Janeiro 2016, that on her first interview after her fight, first thing she said that she wants to thank the Sao Paulo Jewish community, because not only she had her pre-camp over there, they all flew to Rio, and she felt them in the stands, and she felt like she's fighting at home.
Gave me the goosebumps right there.
Yeah. So we're making a big effort to make Israeli athletes feel the same in Paris. We have a few programs right now with Maccabi World Union, with, for example, the Jewish community of New York City, and with friends of a couple universities to bring groups of Jewish communities, Jewish donors, whatever, from around the world to experience the Olympics, see some Jewish heritage, but also cheer Israeli athletes, meet them after they compete. Hopefully, I'll bring Lenny with us if this works out, so we can have them meet a notorious Olympic champion that is also Jewish and a very proud one. So we're trying to connect all dots and make this not only just an Olympic experience, but a Jewish Olympic experience, a global Jewish Olympic experience. And when it's in Paris, it's a pretty easy sell.
And so I think even easier is 2028 right here in Los Angeles, when it's the third largest Jewish community in the world. As preparations already begin there, what do you imagine happening in this empty sanctuary with 2,000 people? What can happen right here with ISTA Sports in the 2028 Olympics in Israel?
I mean, I'd love to see us bring in the Olympic team that will be here. You know, the games are 17 days, so athletes come in waves. So it's not like all of them will be here at the same time, but it'll be awesome, assuming they'll be here at least 10 days before they compete because of jet lag. You come 1 day per hour, so it's a 10-hour difference.
That's why I didn't run the marathon in Jerusalem. I got there a little late.
How we know. No, but we've done this in the past, and it'll be amazing to have them come visit like this community, get the support. I have to admit, when I walked in, I was just in awe of this building and understanding the power behind it. You said to me that on High Holiday, you have close to 2,000 people sitting here. So I can tell you, as an Israeli athlete, when you come here and you understand that Judaism exists as far across the world as LA to Israel is, it gives you a lot of strength and you know, having to compete on your highest day of your life, of your career, a couple of days after. I think it's very important and significant.
Well, you heard it right here that we hope in 2028, and we're going to begin planning now because we know it takes a lot, but we also know that our Sinai Temple Israel Center is really proud. Every single Shabbat and during the week, there are different people coming from Israel. Just last week, we had survivors from Kfar from Nativa Sarah, Ella Shani, who is a family of a hostage member of Amit Shani, who got released in early November. It happens in this physical place, but we're in this physical place because we know we're so connected with that spiritual place as well. In the interview with your friend from Auburn, you did speak a little about the war, and you said, we are a country that cannot lose a war. Kenneth is very connected with JNF USA. Sinai Temple, very connected with JNF USA. Again, going on our mission in May for Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaAtzmaut. How does travel play a piece into just not being able to lose this war?
I think JNF is the best example. First of all, I mean, I couldn't hope for a better relationship with a client like JNF. It's just absolutely amazing. And I think they're the best testament to what you just asked. They understand that we need to bring Jewish people to Israel to show support. In terms of not being able or can't afford losing a war, it takes a village. For us not to lose a war, it's not just our soldiers fighting in the front line. Unlike some not very intelligent minister who was saying stuff about how America is helping Israel or not, I mean, we all understand that Israel would not be as strong as it is without America. So with the Jewish communities here in America giving us the support they do, you guys are doing at least as important job as what we do back home. And understanding you cannot, losing a war is not even an option, changes your whole your whole self as an Israeli, as a nation. And now more than ever, I think we understand that the nation is Jews around the world, not just in Israel. And Jews in America understand, or around the world, that they're part of the big picture and the importance of them taking part this way or another, donating, volunteering, giving their voice against BDS and anti-Semitism and the lies and deceits that we all see in the media is at least as important. So we try to just take a small part in it, to be the platform that unite all those people together, bring them to Israel, give them the best experience to where they'll come back again. And we cannot overlook the importance of the economy of it, right? Not just for us as a company. You know, I'm very proud to say that I managed to bring 5 more employees back to work, where the rest of the companies in Israel are furloughing employees in travel.
I know I heard that some of the employees lost members of their family on October 7th as well.
We have had Daniel, one of our beloved employees, murdered in the Nova concert. And we have a Kenneth employee whose niece was brutally murdered there. And it affects everyone. I mean, you live in Israel, I don't think there's one Israeli who doesn't know people who were kidnapped or murdered or lost dear ones, or lost soldiers in the war, or been evacuated for their homes, and they're still not back. There's hundreds of thousands of Israelis not back to their homes. So it's again, it's a village. It takes a village, and we try to do the best to do what we can. Anywhere from giving jobs to our employees to bringing people to Israel to support, and now more than ever, it feels very important and significant to see what we do. I always compare Kenneth as a inbound into Israel, and my other business is the sport that kind of fulfills dreams for people to go to sporting events. And as exciting as sport is and as lucrative it is, I feel that the tennis work, especially now, is more important than the sport one.
We hope that we're fulfilling that mission here by filling buses and you showing us your home as well. Last question, intersecting that sports and faith aspect. What are 3 lessons from the swimming pool that you could bring to us in terms of connecting Israel, Judaism, and sports?
That's a good one, and you didn't prepare me for that one, but I appreciate that. That's one of the answers. I think the sporting career prepares you for anything. So the best answer I can give is our 4x1 relay in Atlanta, first ever Israeli team to make the finals, not just in swimming, in any sport. And the maker of the team was Dan Cutler, a Jew from LA, he went to UCLA, made Aliyah, because he realized he can make the Olympic team.
Wow. So many American athletes, by the way, like that.
Quite a few.
Specifically the baseball team of the last year with JNF's help as well. We just heard, I was at the JNF conference, and Ryan Landvery, the catcher, I'll just tell you this quick story if you don't know it. When a teenager asked him, why were you on the Israel Olympic team when you had never been to Israel? He said, honestly, I didn't make the U.S. Olympic team. And Israel said, you can make the Olympics. And then U.S. called him and they said, I'm so sorry, but I have my jersey and it's called Israel, and he's never changed. So that's just another example.
Yeah, there's a couple other ones, but other sports. Sorry. So Dan was an American. Vadim made Aliyah from Uzbekistan. I just came back from Auburn, born and raised in Israel, but trained in America. And Eitan was a 17-year-old up-and-coming talent who was our backstroker. So here we are having 4 people who have so little in common, yet our one goal in common was to shock the world and make the Olympic final. And we really believed in that. And all those values of hard work and commitment and belief and teamwork and understanding that we stand together for a bigger cause than just each and every one of us in an individual sport. So swimming would normally be an example of like an individual working, tirelessly to do the best he can, but on his own. And here I'm telling you an example of a group, of a team, and not individuals in swimming. So I think this kind of combines a lot of good things that sport teaches you. Sport and being an Israeli and a Jew. And still is probably the highlight of my career, other than Auburn winning national championships in football and so on and so forth. But as an athlete, to make an Olympic final, I couldn't do it without those guys.
Well, I know that you are a role model to not just Israelis, but to Jews all around the world. And it's really a pleasure to, number one, see you again in our home, and for you to experience what the Jewish community is all about around the world, knowing that so many thousands and thousands of Jews right here at Sinai Temple support exactly what you do for us as well. So Yoav, I know the next time we'll see you, it's going to be on Yom HaAtzmaut in the land of Israel.
Looking forward.
Not Lashana Haba Yerushalayim, but Yom HaAtzmaut Haba Yerushalayim. And we're really proud that you took some time here as well. Yoav Bruck, Rabbi on the Sidelines, Israeli swimming Olympian, Auburn University, owner of Ista Sports and Kenes Tours. As Yoav said, the most important thing, come to Israel. Come to Israel with us at Sinai Temple, May 7th to 15th for Yom HaAtzmaut, Yom HaZikaron. Thank you for joining us, Rabbi on the Sidelines. We'll see you soon.